The world watched in disbelief as the United States unsealed a stunning and unprecedented indictment against Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro, sending shockwaves through international media and diplomatic circles. The announcement was not just another headline. It was a seismic event that would alter the course of Venezuelan politics and U.S.-Latin American relations for years to come. Alongside Maduro stood his wife, Celia Flores, herself a powerful political figure in Venezuela. Their partnership, both personal and political, had long been the subject of scrutiny, but now they faced the world together as co-defendants in a case that would define their legacies. The charges leveled against them were grave and far-reaching. These were not mere political accusations but serious criminal allegations. The U.S. Department of Justice accused Maduro and Flores of leading a narco-terrorism conspiracy, orchestrating vast drug trafficking operations, and committing multiple weapons offenses. The indictment painted a picture of a regime deeply entangled in organized crime, using the machinery of the state to further illicit goals. The situation escalated dramatically when a bold U.S. military operation unfolded in the heart of Caracas. In a matter of hours, elite forces moved in, resulting in the capture of Maduro and Flores. The city was gripped by tension, as images of armored vehicles and soldiers detaining high-profile figures flashed across screens worldwide. This operation marked a new phase in the conflict, pushing it to unprecedented heights and leaving the Venezuelan public in shock. The indictment was not an isolated event. It was the culmination of years of mounting pressure and investigation, building on earlier charges first filed in 2020. Over time, the case against Maduro and his inner circle had grown, with new evidence and testimonies painting an ever more damning portrait of corruption and criminality at the highest levels of Venezuelan power. In a bid to tighten the noose, the U.S. government had offered multi-million-dollar rewards for information leading to Maduro's arrest. The infamous Cartel de los Soles, a shadowy network of military officials accused of drug trafficking, was officially designated as a terrorist organization. These moves raised the stakes dramatically, signaling that the U.S. was prepared to go to extraordinary lengths to bring those responsible to justice. Prosecutors alleged that Maduro and Flores were not merely complicit, but the masterminds behind state-sponsored criminal gangs. They were accused of using their positions of power to shield a sprawling drug empire, manipulating law enforcement and the military to protect their interests and silence dissent. The scale of the alleged conspiracy was staggering, implicating dozens of officials and sending a chilling message to anyone who dared oppose the regime. With these legal actions, the narrative around Maduro shifted dramatically. No longer was he seen solely as a controversial political leader. He was now portrayed as a criminal kingpin, stripped of any remaining legitimacy on the world stage. International leaders lined up to denounce him, and the press covered every development with breathless intensity. For the United States, these sweeping charges provided the justification for the extreme measures that followed. Behind closed doors, officials strategized their next moves, weighing the risks and rewards of direct intervention. The stakes had never been higher, and every decision carried profound consequences for the region. The indictment marked a definitive turning point. Diplomacy, once the preferred tool, was now abandoned in favor of a more direct and confrontational approach. The world watched as the era of negotiation gave way to a new chapter, one defined by legal battles, international pressure, and the uncertain future of Venezuela's leadership. The U.S. indictment painted Venezuela as a narco-state, with Maduro and top officials accused of weaponizing the government for drug trafficking. They allegedly forged alliances with Mexican cartels and Colombian gangs, turning Venezuela into a key transit hub for cocaine. Maduro is accused of selling diplomatic passports to traffickers and using official flights to move drug money. These acts went beyond corruption. They blurred the line between state and organized crime. The military and diplomatic corps allegedly served criminal interests, not the Venezuelan people. This narrative became the U.S. justification for unprecedented action. In a bold move, U.S. forces launched a targeted strike in Caracas to capture President Maduro. The operation, announced by President Trump, was coordinated with law enforcement and marked a dramatic escalation. Maduro and his wife were taken into U.S. custody, sending shockwaves worldwide. This rare act, seizing a sitting head of state, signaled a radical shift in U.S. policy. Years of sanctions and isolation gave way to direct military force. The risks were immense, but the US calculated the benefits outweighed the costs. The world was left reeling, uncertain of what would follow. International norms had been upended overnight. The Trump administration defended the controversial capture as an act of national self-defense, arguing that Venezuela's alleged involvement in narco-terrorism posed a direct and imminent threat to the United States. Officials claimed that extraordinary measures were necessary to protect American citizens and interests, framing the operation as a decisive response to criminal activities that, in their view, transcended borders and demanded urgent action. This justification was presented repeatedly in press briefings and official statements, emphasizing the administration's commitment to national security above all else. However, critics both at home and abroad quickly warned that this approach set a dangerous precedent, potentially undermining the international order. They argued that such unilateral actions violated the UN Charter's core principle of respecting national sovereignty, a cornerstone of modern international relations. Protesters and legal scholars voiced concerns that disregarding these norms could open the door to similar actions by other nations, destabilizing the global system. Legal experts around the world debated the legality of the operation. Many insisted that the US had breached international law, particularly regarding the prohibition on extraterritorial abductions. Meanwhile, some American officials and commentators pointed to the Kerr-Frisbee doctrine, a legal precedent allowing prosecution even if a defendant is brought to the US by irregular means to justify their actions. This highlighted a deep divide between domestic legal interpretations and international expectations. The situation exposed a fundamental clash between US domestic law and the broader norms of the international community. While American courts might accept certain justifications, the global legal framework demands respect for sovereignty and due process, leading to a complex and contentious legal standoff. The US pressed forward with its intention to prosecute Maduro for alleged crimes against the nation, but the manner in which he was captured drew swift and widespread condemnation from governments, human rights organizations, and international bodies. Many saw the operation as an overreach of American power, raising fears about the erosion of international legal standards. This contradiction between the pursuit of justice and the means employed further complicated the situation, casting significant doubt on the legitimacy of the operation in the eyes of the world. Debates raged on television and in legal circles about whether the ends could ever justify the means in such cases. Observers warned that if such actions were to become common practice, the very foundations of international law could be undermined. The principle of might over right could replace established norms, leading to a more chaotic and unpredictable world order, where powerful nations act with impunity. In the aftermath, the United States found itself largely isolated on the world stage, facing a chorus of dissent from allies and adversaries alike. The controversy underscored the fragile balance between national interests and global cooperation, leaving the future of international law hanging in the balance. The US operation in Venezuela triggered immediate condemnation from Russia and China, who called it a violation of sovereignty and a reckless escalation. The European Union, while critical of Maduro, urged restraint and respect for international law, refusing to endorse the US action. These responses revealed deep divisions over the crisis and America's role. The US found itself isolated, criticized by rivals and uneasy allies alike. The lack of European support highlighted a rift among Western nations. The world now faced the fallout of a decisive but unilateral act. International consensus was bypassed, leaving global institutions sidelined. The crisis had been fundamentally reshaped by US intervention. Maduro's capture was the climax of a long US campaign, sanctions, indictments, and bounties aimed at toppling his regime. Economic pressure targeted Venezuela's oil industry and officials, seeking to cut off revenue and force Maduro out. The 2020 indictment reframed the conflict as criminal, not just political. The US offered a $15 million bounty for Maduro, treating him as a fugitive. Each step escalated pressure, isolating Maduro and building the case for intervention. When sanctions and legal means failed, military action became the final, extreme step. Years of strategy left little room for diplomacy, leading to the strike in Caracas. After the dramatic capture of Nicolás Maduro, President Trump stepped forward to announce that the United States would take a leading role in overseeing Venezuela's transition. The world watched as the US declared it would assume direct control of the process, promising to guide the country toward a new era. This move was presented as a necessary step to restore order and democracy, but it also signaled a profound shift in Venezuela's sovereignty and the region's balance of power. The American plan, however, was shrouded in uncertainty. Details remained scarce. There was talk of potentially installing opposition leaders, organizing new elections, or even rebuilding the entire government from the ground up. Yet, no concrete roadmap was offered, leaving both Venezuelans and international observers unsure of what would come next. The lack of clarity fueled anxiety and speculation across the country. This unprecedented level of foreign involvement quickly became a lightning rod for controversy. Many Venezuelans, already wary of outside interference, took to the streets in protest, voicing fears that their nation's fate was being decided by foreign powers. Heated debates erupted in the media and among political leaders, with some warning that U.S. intervention could deepen divisions rather than heal them. Experts and analysts cautioned that simply removing Maduro would not guarantee the collapse of his regime. Deep-rooted power structures, networks of loyalists, and entrenched interests still held significant sway. The military remained on high alert, and many within the old guard were determined to resist any changes imposed from abroad. The risk of internal power struggles loomed large. With the old order destabilized, new factions vied for influence, and there was a real danger that anti-US leaders could emerge from the chaos. The political landscape became a battleground, with shadowy figures maneuvering behind the scenes and public rallies growing ever more tense. Venezuela's political order was left in ruins. Government institutions stood abandoned or broken, and the dawn brought little hope for a clear path forward. The nation found itself at a crossroads, with no consensus on how to rebuild or who should lead. Meanwhile, the humanitarian crisis only deepened. Families waited in long lines for food, children stood before shuttered shops, and supermarket shelves remained empty. The daily struggle for survival grew more desperate, and the uncertainty of the future weighed heavily on everyone. Instead of bringing stability, U.S. intervention seemed to unleash a new wave of volatility. Protests erupted across Caracas, news outlets broadcast scenes of chaos, and the mood on the streets was tense and unpredictable. The promise of a brighter future felt more distant than ever. For ordinary Venezuelans, the road ahead looked long and difficult. Many were forced to leave their homes, carrying what little they had, joining long lines at border crossings in search of safety and opportunity elsewhere. The sense of loss and uncertainty was palpable. The fall of one leader, it became clear, did not guarantee a stable or prosperous nation. As the Venezuelan flag fluttered over a city in turmoil, the people faced an uncertain dawn, hoping for peace, but bracing for the challenges that lay ahead.